It's day 2. I'm walking to my bus stop. I have to walk all the way up this street and then make a left and then it's right there. It's not that bad, but I can definitely feel a toll because I have to wake up so much earlier.
What is the challenge you will be doing this week?
I will be doing the carbon footprint challenge. So for 1 week I'm going to try to limit my carbon footprint.
What do you think will be the easiest thing about this challenge?
The easiest thing would probably be like reducing meat because I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat. So that's my food intake will not have a lot of carbon within it.
Easiest thing? I know that I have been trying to reduce carbon footprint at least at home by like turning off the electricity and things like that. So I think that's gonna make me easier to do it because I know what to do. But I also know there is limitations to how much I can reduce it.
What do you think will be the hardest thing about this challenge?
Probably like managing how I'm gonna get to school and back because I don't know. I'm probably not going to take my car anymore. I'm probably going to take public transit. So I have to figure that out.
This thing is the transportation part because I live about 20 minutes from school, so there's not really any other alternatives besides, driving.
What do you currently know about the global impacts of having large carbon footprints?
I know that it contributes to a lot of environmental degradation.
Having a large carbon footprint is, around the world is contributing to these issues like, climate change.
Do you currently feel you have a large carbon footprint or a small carbon footprint?
I have a really large one. I live in America. We do. Individuals do. Yeah.
Footprint.
I do think I still have a large carbon footprint because I use my car a lot. And also flies around.
How do you plan to reduce your carbon footprint?
I'm not going to take my car, and then I'm not going to eat meat, and then, I don't know, and then I'm not going to, I'm gonna try to recycle and reuse stuff a lot more.
Mental checks of all the things that I have plugged in and recording the things that I'm using and the emissions that they're producing.
What do you think you'll learn, or what do you expect while trying this challenge out?
I think I'll learn more about how my everyday activities contribute more to the carbon footprint, because I feel like I don't know a lot about how the simple things I do every day contribute, and so I'm hoping to learn more about how I can change little actions.
I'm hoping to learn more methods and new methods that I have not been doing, and by doing so I'll hope to teach other people.
Hi, good morning. This is day 1 of the Reducing My Carbon Footprint Challenge. When it comes to preparing myself in the morning, I usually take 10 to 15 minute showers, but this time I timed myself and I only showered for 8 minutes, which is an improvement. And I also cut my water use by not putting on hair conditioner in the shower. Instead, I put on some leave-in conditioner. And when it comes to the technology aspect of this challenge, I'm not off to a good start because last night when I was charging my Chromebook, I forgot about it, fell asleep, and when I woke up I realized that I'd been charging the entire night. So not gonna make that mistake again. I'm almost going to leave for school. So yeah, I'll see how the rest of this.
Hi, so we are going to Ralph today so that we can make food for my mother who's coming from work at night. And instead of bringing the car, we decided to walk instead, and so we can reduce the carbon footprint. Hi, this is the second vlog of the day, and today I was gonna change the light bulb of our light standing into LED bulbs so that they are gonna use less energy and we can reduce carbon footprint that way. So now I'm going to unplug this light bulb that we have already used completely and it doesn't work anymore. And I'm gonna way brighter and we are using way less energy too. Hi, so this is another day of doing carbon footprint reducing challenge, and today I have just realized in my room there are so many plug cables here. Is it cables? And because I'm not using it right now, I realized I could just take them off and reduce the electricity use and also conserve energy. So I'm gonna pull all of this out because they are the Chromebook chargers. Yeah, so fun. Okay, very good.
End of day 2 for the reducing my carbon footprint challenge. My mornings were same as usual. Took a shower, was quicker than before. When it came to electronics, I was a lot better because I did not leave my Chromebook charging overnight. I woke up early enough and plugged it in. So yeah, I reduced the amount of electricity spent charging my Chromebook. My phone, I did not charge my phone overnight, which is kind of a good thing and a bad thing because not now, but my phone, it was 0% when I woke up. But when I did wake up, I did charge it.
Hi, today is my third day of doing carbon footprint challenge, and right now I'm on the way back to home. And while driving on the freeway, I'm trying to minimize myself using the brake so that I'll be able to save more energy and reduce the carbon footprint.
Hi. Okay, I definitely forgot to vlog in the morning, but today is the day 3 of my challenge, and today I didn't have school, and instead I went to downtown LA with my dad just to go and eat and to go visit USC. And so I actually didn't reduce my carbon footprint because we didn't use public transportation, and instead we just drove there. But at USC, they did like this cool little like bus tour thing of like the campus and the surrounding area, which I thought was really cool and like a little bit insightful to how like in college I would probably be able to reduce my carbon footprint a little bit more, just because there's more walking and I won't have a car or parents to drive me around whenever I need to, and everything that I need will be like within a 15-minute walk, and instead of like going out like to eat or going to school, like I would be able to walk everywhere that I needed to go, which is interesting, and I feel like that really will help me reduce my carbon footprint. Yeah, and then right now I'm gonna go to bed right now, but before that I unplugged all my appliances, and today I want to say, just because I was out more, that my electricity use, or like my use of like the internet and stuff, was very limited, but that's basically it. Yeah, it was not a very successful day because I couldn't take the bus anywhere I was going, but I think it was very insightful to see like how in college I would be able to reduce my carbon footprint.
So we're here with Cameron Sherry, and he's our professional carbon footprint expert, because he rides his bike to school, and so he definitely has more experience with reducing his carbon footprint than we do. So we're here to ask him some questions. And so Cameron, for our first question, we are asking you, what exactly is a carbon footprint?
Well, a carbon footprint, to put it sharply, succinctly, is the amount of carbon dioxide and other compound or other carbon compounds emitted due to the consumption of fossil fuels by a particular person, group, etc. So it can be, for a person, for a school, for etc.
Okay. Next question. From our lives, what is the main contributor to our carbon footprint?
So I think main contributors to carbon footprint can definitely be cut down to 3 different categories. So one, how many children you have. By far, this is the most. This will increase your carbon footprint by a significant amount because of the cumulative effect of carbon usage by your child. The use of fossil fuel powered transportation, and then the exponential increase in energy usage with the recent growth of the internet and data centers and moving to the cloud. So having a child can really increase the amount of carbon, your carbon footprint, because not only everything that you do that emits carbon dioxide, that's the things that they're going to do too. So they're also going to have cars, they're also going to use public transportation, they're also going to they're going to be eating food, so but because of the agricultural processes, that's also contributing to your carbon footprint. So basically, just having a child is doubling your carbon footprint essentially. So don't have lots of kids. That's basically the thing. And then also, as we know, with the amount of gasoline that's consumed by public transportation, individual transportation, the internal combustion engine, they put out so much carbon. I think on average the average American consumes about 500 gallons of gasoline every single year. So multiply that by about 300 million, and then etc. So it's of course it's different for every single nation, but transportation is a significant contributor to your carbon footprint. So I would suggest either biking, it's a really good thing to do, or just walking places or using public transport because that's usually more efficient. And then lastly, there's such an increase in the amount of data centers, individual clients like laptops, phones, stuff like that, and as well as Internet of Things devices. So basically Google Home Minis, smart lights, smart doorbells, stuff like that. And all of this is really increasing the amount of carbon, because a lot of people don't realize that every time you do an action that has anything to do with those devices, it's exponentially increasing the amount of carbon that's emitted, because those actions go to larger servers, and then those go through different sections that all use electricity, and electricity is, most of it's powered by fossil fuel powered energy sources. So yeah, that's a really big carbon contributor as well.
Okay, and so for our next question, how big is our footprint in relation to people in less economically developed countries?
That's a pretty complex question, because there's a wide array of different countries under that denomination of less economically developed. So, for example, China is considered an LEDC by the World Bank, but China's industrializing heavily, so they have they emit a lot of carbon. So the carbon footprint per person is a lot higher than most other LEDCs. So, if you compare it to a country like Mongolia, where only a very small population is actually dependent on fossil fuels, and the vast majority is not because of the underdeveloped nature of their country, it's also still considered a developing country by the World Bank, but they contribute significantly less carbon than other countries would. So I guess in general you could say that LEDCs, the individual uses less carbon, they have a smaller carbon footprint, but there are also a lot of developing countries that are industrializing, and that's the key. If they're industrializing, they're huge carbon polluters, more so than more economically developed countries, because now those countries having post-industrialized, they have more options for reaching sustainable fuels and stuff like that. So it all really depends, but yeah, in general, less economically developed countries, less carbon polluting, but industrialization is a huge key for that.
Okay, so next question. What do you think will happen to the human carbon footprint in the foreseeable future?
Well, as with the previous question, a lot of the countries around the world are developing, so that means that at some point they will be developed countries. So basically, as more and more humans experience that elevated standard of living, and they become more, they have higher propensity to demand certain privileges and certain rights, such as having easy access to transportation, easy access to internet, stuff like that. I think definitely the carbon footprint of the individual globally will increase over time as people start demanding more and more services, and both in regards to the internet, in regards to just basic things like transportation, more food, all of that contributes to your carbon footprint. So there's of course a great push towards sustainable energy, but currently right now sustainable energy does not take up a significant portion of the energy demand for a lot of the services that are required by a lot of the a lot of people around the globe. So as we're moving towards sustainable energy, yes, we will indeed reduce our carbon footprint, but as it is now, it's just growing per person.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I definitely agree with that. But okay, so what are some ways that we can reduce our carbon footprint?
Well, okay, so this one is, actually it's pretty simple. There's just a couple of things you can do. Well, there's a lot of things you can do, but there's a couple things that I think are feasible for a lot of people, especially in more economically developed countries. So basically not relying on, combustion, or relying more on human-powered transportation. So biking, ooh, or just walking places or using public transport. It's always a better option than just driving a car by yourself. It just uses so much more gasoline, so much more fuel, and releases so much more carbon. In addition, have fewer children is important. Don't have lots of kids. Have one if you can, maybe two if you're lucky. Okay? So much carbon, those kids. Their carbon sinks. Anyway, and I would also, in general, develop habits that are more sustainable. So, like I said, trying to rely more on human-powered transportation, as well as doing things like turning off lights when they're not in use, turning off your car when you're not moving, you're just sitting there, turning on the AC or the heating less, as well as investing in more sustainable parts of your life. So basically, like, invest more in, well, better insulation for your house, so that way you don't have to use like heating or cooling more. You can also invest in solar panels, electric cars to go along with that, just stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of ironic because we live in this digital age where information is like easily available to us, yet we still have troubles like seeking those ways to reduce our carbon footprint. So do you feel that our carbon footprints are being increased or decreased because of this new information?
That was a nice segue, by the way. I think that our carbon footprints are definitely being increased with the increase of the digital age. Because I mean, sure, you have more access to information about being more sustainable, but a lot of people not only do not take advantage of that, but in addition to that, they're using a lot of these online services. So with the recent migration to the cloud, people are typically relying on providers like Google or Facebook and stuff like that for a lot of their services, for like online storage, stuff like that. And all of those are centered in these giant data centers. Every single one of those takes up a huge amount of energy, and they can be super pollutive depending on their practices. And typically they are also nowadays they're being built in lower economically developed countries because it's just cheaper that way. So every single time you do a Google search or something like that, or every single time you send an email, it emits carbon because of the amount of electricity that's used by these giant data centers. So I think as more people start getting connected to the internet, that's increasing. So the carbon footprint in general are being increased as a result of a dependence on the internet.
So lastly, do you think that reducing carbon dioxide emissions is all it takes in steps towards a sustainable future?
I definitely think not, because, well, carbon dioxide, although it is really, really relevant now because it's leading to immediate and very, very rapid changes in our climate, it's not the only issue that, we're dealing with. Because, there's other types of pollution, methane, and also just physical pollution. So a lot of the stuff that we throw away, it all goes to landfills. So a lot of the trash that we dispose of, all the food that we waste, it's all getting disposed of in giant landfills or getting thrown in the oceans, and this contributes a lot of these landfills, they contribute a lot of carbon dioxide and a lot of methane to the atmosphere, which directly contributes to climate change. And there's also when people eating a lot of meat, especially in the Americas, the increase in the livestock market, those also contribute directly to a lot of climate change with the amount of methane that's released, as well as the pollution of the environment, soil erosion, compaction, as well as contamination of water supplies. This is all a result of our different habits. So no, cutting down on our carbon emissions is not the only way to help the environment. There's a huge, vast array of things. It's just that cutting down on carbon is one of the most important things we can do right now, and it's also one of the easiest things to do right now. Because a lot of people aren't going to change their diet to eating less meat, but they can start walking more, they can start biking more, they can just stop Googling random memes on the internet, It just depends on scale, so. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Cameron.
Thank you.
Of course. Cameron signing out.
Okay.
Hello, day 4 of the Reducing My Carbon Footprint Challenge. I feel like I'm not making as big as an impact. I think part of that reason is because I'm not doing things directly to my body. Like in the vegetarian diet challenge, for example, I was actually changing my diet and prohibiting myself from eating certain things that it impacted my body. But for this challenge, I'm just doing simple things like, flipping off the light switch if it's been on for too long and taking shorter showers. Like, I don't feel the impact. It's made me more aware of things that I'm using, of utilities that I'm using, but I just feel like I'm not making an impact.
Today I'm gonna do laundry, and we usually wait until all the clothing are gathered so that we don't have to do this very often and we don't waste the energy. And I was gonna start laundry by placing this powder.
Okay, so it's day 5 again, and I am on my way home. I just took the bus again. It's taking me it's taking me 40 minutes to get home a day, where usually it takes me about like 20 or so minutes, but I'm still getting home at the same time, if that makes sense, because usually I wait like 20 minutes at school because of the traffic that there is coming home. So it kind of evens out in the long run, but it definitely is like a lot more walking and a lot more like time management than me like driving to school is. So I see why that's like a downfall to this like reducing my carbon footprint by taking the bus. But then again, like I only live like 3 miles away from my school, and I wonder if like actually taking the bus is like contributing more than just me taking my car.
Day 5. I'm trying to get interesting angles for this vlog. I ate all vegetarian today. No meat, less carbon footprint, yes. But I also took 2 showers today. One in the morning and one,
Okay, day 6. I'm definitely waiting for my bus, but I can't walk.
Day 6. What happened today? Short shower in the morning. Vegetarian meals all day. I feel like that's all I can contribute to this challenge. The only things plugged in my room are this lamp and my computer. Hey, so this is day 7, the last day of the Reducing My Carbon Footprint Challenge, and this challenge was a lot more difficult than I thought. What have I done today? So I took a shower today. I took a pretty quick shower again. Did not use conditioner. In fact, I even forgot my leave-in conditioner, so even less waste, I guess you can say. I picked up 2 of my friends for school today, so I reduced their carbon footprint. Overall, just this challenge is just pretty difficult.
Guys, I deserve a round of applause because I just took a 7-minute shower on day 7. Oh yeah. Okay, So kind of to reflect on the military challenge, it definitely showed me how attainable it is to reduce your carbon footprint, and how like society kind of tells us to be like these conspicuous consumers, but we really don't need to be. And we don't need to have everything so accessible to us. And like things can take more than a second to load, and things can take more than a second to like plug in and turn on, and I feel like that's totally fine. But I feel like our society just kind of like tells us like everything needs to be within like a nanosecond, but it doesn't. And I feel like taking the bus also showed me that, because if like my parents don't have to be there, or I don't have to drive myself to school every day when I could just take the bus. So I think overall definitely showed me how to, one, reduce my carbon footprint, and two, it showed me how attainable it is. Thank you. Bye.
Hey guys, I'm here with Dr. Woodcraft. Dr. Woodcraft, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Christine Woodcraft, and I'm a professor in biology at California State University, Long Beach, where I study coastal wetlands.
Okay, so we did this carbon challenge, and basically the point of the challenge was to have a couple of average students from Granada Hills to change their lifestyle for a week to try to reduce their carbon footprint. And this required simple changes to their daily routines, such as driving themselves to school, to carpooling, or unplugging all their devices when they're not in use. So in the grand scheme of things, do you think these changes are enough to really impact a person's carbon footprint?
I do. I tend to be an optimist about it, but if only one person did those changes, it wouldn't make a difference. But we have so many people on the planet that if everyone made those changes, it would make a significant difference in reducing the carbon impact. And I think for you guys, it's also probably an awareness issue, right, of just how much you're plugged in and just how much we use in our daily commute. And so the real value is probably the awareness that it raised, maybe not the carbon alone.
Yeah,
awareness.
Definitely. The challenge made me think of just how small things I can do, if they add up for everyone doing it, it would make a pretty big impact to the environment. Okay, secondly, in 2016, the combustion of fossil fuels in the United States for energy purposes accounted for 34% of the country's total carbon dioxide emissions. How do these carbon emissions specifically affect areas that are generally considered carbon sinks, like the wetlands?
So people often make the analogy about wetlands being sponges, and that somewhat works for carbon as well. It's the carbon stored in the soils and the carbon taken up by the plants. And in some level of CO2, the plants are capable of mitigating the CO2 in the atmosphere by using it all. And the water is capable of taking up the CO2, and the sediments can store it. But there does come a threshold at which the ecosystems aren't able to keep up with all of the carbon that we produce in the form of CO2. And I think that at the levels we are reaching, we know that our ecosystems have, exceeded their ability to buffer that human input of CO2.
Which is exactly the point of this whole carbon challenge, realizing that the impacts the things that we're doing impact the environment, and especially. Third, with an increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, climate change has become more of a concern. Climate change leads to significant changes in environments, from more intense weather patterns, drier or wetter seasons, or warmer surface temperatures. How does climate change affect the ecological conditions in wetlands?
So wetlands are probably first and foremost going to be impacted by sea level rise, which is a result of warming temperatures, having melted glaciers, and adding, increases to the sea height. And because most wetlands that I study are on the coast, I always say they're sort of like the canary in the coal mine for sea level rise. They're going to be the habitats that first experience that sea level rise. We also know that temperature will change which plants can exist there and which animals can exist there. So many organisms in wetlands are already at their O2 max. They use up O2 rapidly, and if temperatures increase, they would use up O2 more rapidly. So we predict that some of them will be affected by temperature, some of them are affected by evaporation raising salinity, But probably that biggest one is sea level rise, because it may result in the whole loss of the habitat. Because they can't go backwards because we built houses there.
United States carbon dioxide levels are supposedly planned to decrease from 5.3 billion metric tons in 2015 to 5 billion by 2040. Based on the effects you have seen occur to natural ecosystems like the wetlands, do you think this decrease is enough? And what do you think would be a more effective change in order to better protect these environments?
I certainly think the decrease is good. While it's probably not enough, I think if you paired it with other adaptation efforts like restoration, restoring more habitat around the wetlands, bringing back a better plant and animal community in the wetlands, that together too could be enough to help that these properties, and ecosystems keep pace at least.
On a global scale, many expect carbon emissions to increase due to industrialization and developments in nations like China and India. Based on your professional experience, how would you try to mitigate this issue and reduce carbon emissions?
That's a great question, and I don't necessarily study the human part of it, but one of the things that they talk about in conservation biology is that technology does have the ability to leapfrog. So technologies that we've learned in places that are already developed can be in some ways exported to that country where maybe they're less developed, and that would help you get around having to go through an industrial revolution where you produce all of that emission. So if you could, if we have scrubbers or we have the ability to capture it in certain plants or algae, you could make sure that technology is there before all that greenhouse gas is released. I also feel like we've learned a lot about how habitat destruction can contribute both carbon but then reduce our ability to take it up. So if we did more habitat restoration in industrialized places, that might help too.
As a professional, what do you do in your lifestyle that reflects the carbon challenge? Would you say that your lifestyle uses the least amount of carbon possible, or are there still elements you could cut to further reduce your carbon footprint?
Even though I know the impacts, there's certainly still ones I could reduce. Probably my biggest one is air travel for both vacations and work, and then commuting. So I could bike, but I drop my kid off at school and then I come into school in the car. And so if, that would be definitely one. Like, he loves to ride his bike, I should just put him behind me and bike to school, things like that. We do live close to where I work, which is one of the advantages of not going too far, but I feel like there's ways I could certainly trim.
Ken Krause from USGS explains that wetlands have great potential in sequestering carbon and other greenhouse gases due to photosynthesis. However, depending on the type of wetland, they can also emit certain greenhouse gases. How does the biogeochemical state of the soil create this ability to emit gases? Does it have any lasting effects on the system as a whole?
So typically it's freshwater wetlands that emit methane, and that's a way more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2. And so people have looked at what they can do in terms of vegetation cover and soil in freshwater wetlands to contain that methane release. And they've also just looked at, in the restoration process for a saltwater wetland that doesn't emit methane, are there things we can do to make sure that you don't get freshwater pools in there that might lead to methanogenesis. But generally, luckily in salt marsh restoration, the salt and the microbes associated with it the sulfide inhibits the methane production. So saltwater wetlands have less of a problem with it.
Are wetland ecosystems experiencing an increase in pH levels as a result of carbon emissions in a similar fashion of ocean acidification? The reason I ask is because when I examined how pH changed throughout a year in Colorado Lagoon, I did not observe statistical significance of a pH increase. But is it merely due to a short time frame?
It may be. So the changes they've seen in pH have been generally a little bit of a decline in pH. As you absorb that more CO2, it leads to the production of carbonic acid. But it has been over sort of a 10-15 year time scale. So it's quite possible in here the data you guys had wasn't a long enough time to observe it. People are still worried about changes in temperature and pH for systems like this because it's so enclosed that if it did change, it has the potential to affect the organisms that can live in here. My bet is time frame for your data.
And has humanity passed the point of no return in terms of carbon emissions? do you think we will be able to reverse or at least slow down the detrimental effects that carbon emission has caused to the environment?
Well, that's good. It comes full circle. I mean, I'm still an optimist, thinking that we've learned a lot about how to improve processes, clean them up, change our lifestyles. And so my hope is still that people will recognize, we need to do that, and that we need to do it in order for humans to be able to survive, so that we'll continue to apply technology and good stewardship of the environment in a way that lets us, slow down the CO2 production and absorb what we've created.
And for the Colorado Lagoon specifically, there's been a lot of restoration efforts involved in, improving the quality of it. So how important do you think is the community aspect as a whole to not only improve ecosystems like wetlands, but just ecosystems in general?
I think it's a huge part of it. So one of the concepts has been resilience. So how resilient is a community and an ecosystem to future disasters or to climate change? And the number one part of that is actually community. Because, if you know where to turn in an emergency, or have your neighbor to go to ask a question or ask for a ride or check on another neighbor, people have found that's one of the number one components in surviving some sort of natural disaster, whether that's a slow creeping climate change or whether that's a big disaster. And so the Colorado Lagoon is one of those places. It's a center of community for here, but it's also a really nice place that has the ecology that might help too.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Wickfire.
Sure, thank you.
How was the challenge for you guys?
It was okay. It was easier than I expected. Because I thought it was going to be really challenging to take a bus, but it wasn't.
You actually did.
Yeah. So how did you guys, what's it for you?
I think it was as what I was expecting it to be, like that, and it wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be.
It wasn't super difficult, but there were a lot of times where I wanted to do something, but I just couldn't because I was limited in what I can do, like transportation, for example. So a lot of times I got frustrated. But other than that, it was a pretty good challenge.
Alright, so activities of each American add about 21 tons of heat-trapping CO2 to the atmosphere each year, and per-person emissions in the USA are 4 times the global average and 2 times that of other countries with similar living conditions. What do you guys think about that in terms of our society versus other countries?
That was a long fact.
Well, I think that America as a whole, like their whole entire like society as a whole, like all the expectations and all like the big companies like kind of like manipulate and brainwash people, saying like, oh, you need this and you need to do this and do that, and that like kind of like perpetuates how badly the environment, like it perpetuates like a bad like living style, and it leads to environmental degradation. And I just think that like America as a whole, like each individual, because of their lifestyle, like affects the environment more than any other country.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised considering how industrialized and how much of a consumerist country America is.
It's just kind of sad to hear that even though America is such a developed country, compared to any other developing countries, they're emitting way more carbon dioxide than other countries. Like that, even though that are spending more, they have to spend more carbon because they have to do more transportation, industrialization. But like America doesn't have to do as much, and they have all the technology to use, but they're kind of ignoring that aspect.
Yeah, I find that really ironic. How developed of a country America is, yet we're like leading in the amount of carbon emissions that we produce. That's kind of sad.
Alright, so in 2016, the combustion of fossil fuels to generate electricity was the largest single source of CO2 emissions in the nation, accounting for about 34% of total US carbon emissions. So what were some ways that you guys reduced your fossil fuel usage, and yeah?
So for me, like I took the bus everywhere. Well, I tried, and I could definitely see how that would reduce carbon emissions just because it's just like everyone on the same bus wasn't driving so like too fast, wasn't making like stops everywhere, so it's definitely more efficient than taking.
I wanted to try bus, but I couldn't. But what I tried to do from this challenge was trying to do more carpooling and like taking more people with me so that they don't have to use other transportation. And I just generally think that in America, or at least where we are living in, the transportation is not very good, and that's the part that they have to kind of consider more about trying to come up with better transportation, so people don't have to bring their own cars everywhere.
Yeah, I was in the same situation as Subin where I couldn't really I couldn't use public transportation because of like my parents wouldn't let me. But even then, like the main places that I went to the past week were school and church. And church is really close by, but for school I live 20 minutes away, so like I can't really use any other mode of transportation other than a car. But I did pick up one of my friends throughout that entire week for school because his ankle was pretty bad, so I reduced their carbon emissions.
So global CO2 concentrations currently stand at 406.42 parts per million and could reach 410 parts per million later this spring. So what are some ways any person around the world can reduce their carbon emissions? Not just anymore.
I think they just have to analyze like every single aspect of their life. Like when we hear carbon emissions, usually the first thing we think of is like transportation, just because you can actually physically see like smoke and exhaust coming out of your car. But just focusing and thinking of other aspects of your life, like using the internet would using the internet is a big contributor to CO2 emissions. So even lessening your use of that would substantially reduce your carbon emissions. Yeah, I think just thinking about other aspects.
But rather than just focusing on transportation, I should say, I think people should realize that there are other ways to reduce carbon emission. Like you can reduce like use of like utilities like plastic bags and things like that could also reduce the carbon emission. And just knowing how to drive better. And they say that if you charge your fossil fuel or gasoline in the morning, you can actually get more gasoline and use more gasoline for further distances. So that can maybe help you to reduce the amount of fossil fuel that you use and burn carbon to the atmosphere. And things like that, small things could actually make changes more than you people think they will be. So
yeah, and I just think that like the best thing to do is just to be aware, because like even like the clothes you buy, the food you eat, that all contributes to carbon. But I feel like a lot of people don't know that those simple things that they do contribute to like carbon emissions. So I feel like just if they knew more about it and they knew what contributed to what and like how easy the switch would be from reducing your carbon emissions, that would just help a lot.
And just to tie everything together, just because you can't see like smoke or things being emitted from everyday things that you do, that doesn't mean that you're not emitting carbon.
The production of 1 pound of beef is equivalent to 18 times the emissions of producing 1 pound of pasta. So what do you guys think about what that says of our carbon emissions in terms of food?
Well, knowing that American culture revolves, like in terms of food, revolves heavily around meat, us as a country can definitely take efforts to reduce them. I mean, for me personally, in this challenge, I ate a lot less meat and more vegetables because I also did a vegetarian challenge. So that helped a lot.
and just getting your food around the local people. Like I know for me, it's very difficult to reduce the amount of meat that we as a family eat because we are Korean culture and most of the food are like based of like meat, and like their soups are based of like meat too. So it's kind of difficult, and my family are very just like concentrated. Like they can't change their appetite that easily. So I think just for me, I just at least try to go to like farmers market nearby so that I can reduce the carbon footprint that way. And yeah, that was all I could do for this experience.
Yeah, I just think that it's just like American, as Trish was saying, it's just American culture to like feed into these big industries. But I feel like if there's a way to like break it down so that food can be more local and like meat can be more local and like choosing the right option.
So U.S. CO2 emissions should be decreasing over the next 25 years, going from 5.3 billion metric tons to 5.0 billion metric tons in 2040. So, what do you guys think about how we're making steps towards improvement?
That's good news to hear.
It makes me wonder what makes that progression happen. Is it because of the biofuels and the change in the more using renewable energy, or that's what makes me wonder? Like,
yeah, it is a prediction, but I wonder if it like actually will happen, and even if like we do reduce our carbon emissions, like we're already in debt, so will that really change like the environmental impacts of today?
So we have to try harder.
Yeah.
That just thinking that we're actually making progression and we don't have to try as hard anymore. That's a bad way to go.
That's true. I feel like with predicted trends like that, like carbon emissions are going to go down this much. I feel like in some other sector in the environment, some other type of impact or degradation is going to go up because of that. But I don't know. I'll try to stay hopeful. So like, comment, and subscribe, and check out our channel for more challenge videos like this. And we challenge you to reduce your carbon footprint.